Have you ever stood in the doorway after a long hug goodbye, watching your adult children drive away, and felt your heart stretch a little too far? Maybe the silence in the house feels a little louder now, the calendar a little emptier, the days just a touch longer. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. So many parents, especially in their 60s and beyond, are navigating this new chapter where their children have lives miles, sometimes even continents, away. And while we're proud of them, while we celebrate the life they're building, there's still that ache, that quiet space between "I'm happy for them" and "I miss them so much it hurts." That ache is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. This isn't just about missing your children. It's about figuring out how to love them from afar without losing your own sense of connection, your identity, or your joy in life. It's about turning distance into something that doesn't feel like a wall, but like a bridge. In this video, we're going to have an honest, heart-to-heart conversation about how to do exactly that. How to keep your heart open, your relationship strong, and your own life deeply fulfilling, even when your children aren't just down the street anymore. Let's start with something that might feel obvious, but many of us struggle with: letting go of guilt. That sneaky little voice that says, "If only I had done something different, maybe they wouldn't have moved so far away." Or the one that whispers, "I shouldn't need them this much. I should be stronger." That voice? It's not the truth. Our children make choices for all kinds of reasons: work, love, opportunity, adventure. And their choices are not a rejection of us. They're a reflection of their own path. And your emotions, your longing to see them, your wish to be near, that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. So instead of judging yourself, I invite you to offer compassion. Think of yourself as you would a dear friend. Would you tell them to get over it? Of course not. You'd say, "It's okay to feel what you're feeling. It means you love deeply." And that, my friend, is something to be proud of. Now, once we've made space for those feelings without guilt, we can start to ask, how do we stay close, even when we're far apart? One of the most powerful things you can do is to redefine what closeness looks like. For a long time, it might have meant Sunday dinners, helping with errands, babysitting the grandkids. But now, it might look different. It might be a video call where you both share your day over tea. It might be a handwritten letter, a care package, or a voice message sent just because you were thinking of them. These moments might seem small, but they carry a tremendous weight. They say, "I'm still here. I'm still part of your life." And they matter. And here's something else that can make all the difference. Be curious about their world. Ask them about the projects they're working on, the people in their lives, the challenges they're facing, not out of obligation, but from genuine interest. When you show curiosity about who they are now, not just who they were when they lived at home, you send a powerful message. You're saying, "I see you. I value you. I'm growing with you." That's how relationships stay alive, through mutual respect and the willingness to evolve together. Of course, there will be times when the calls don't come as often as you'd like, when holidays feel too quiet, when you wonder if you're being forgotten. And during those moments, it helps to remember this. You are not defined by your children's schedules. You are not only a parent, you are still you. A whole, complex, beautiful person with interests, passions, stories, and dreams. And one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself and to your children is to keep growing. I once spoke to a woman named Myra. She was 72. Her daughter had moved overseas for work, and they only saw each other once a year. At first, Myra was devastated. But then she made a choice. She joined a local choir, started learning Italian because her granddaughter was bilingual and she wanted to surprise her, and began gardening again. Her daughter noticed. She said, "Mom, I feel so proud of you. You're thriving." That pride built a bridge between them. Not because Myra was pretending not to miss her daughter, but because she was showing her daughter that life doesn't stop when they move away. it expands. So as we begin this journey together, I want you to hold on to this idea. Loving from a distance isn't second best. It's just different. It takes creativity. It takes resilience. And most of all, it takes love. The kind that can stretch across time zones and still feel just as strong. You have that kind of love in you. You always have. And as we continue, we'll talk about how to nurture it, express it, and most importantly, how to protect your own well-being along the way. Let's keep going. Now that we've opened our hearts to the idea that love doesn't fade with distance, it simply finds new ways to show itself, let's talk about how we can build those bridges of connection a little stronger, a little wider, so that even on the loneliest days, we never feel truly apart. One of the most healing things you can do is to create rituals of connection. These don't have to be big or complicated. In fact, the simpler, the better. Maybe it's a morning message you send every Sunday, a quick thinking of you with a picture of your garden or your breakfast or even a silly joke. Maybe it's a monthly video call where you both share something new you've learned. The point isn't perfection, it's consistency. When there's a rhythm to your connection, something dependable, it becomes a thread that ties your lives together, no matter how far apart you are. I remember hearing about a man named Victor, 68, whose son moved to another country. At first, the silence was deafening. Then Victor got creative. He began recording short audio clips, reflections on his day, a funny memory, sometimes just the sound of birds in his backyard, and sent them every Friday morning. His son started looking forward to them. He said, "It feels like I'm still walking through life with you, Dad." Isn't that beautiful? Technology, when used with intention, becomes a lifeline. It's not about scrolling endlessly or filling up chat boxes. It's about meaningful contact built with care. But let's also talk about boundaries, because here's where it gets tricky. Just because we miss our children doesn't mean we should expect them to fill every emotional gap in our lives. It's okay to want their time and attention. It's natural to feel disappointed when the calls don't come, or they seem distracted when they do. But if we're not careful, that disappointment can turn into pressure. And pressure, even when it comes from love, can drive people away. What we want instead is to create space that welcomes them back without guilt or obligation. A good place to start is by letting them know you're okay, that your life is full, even without them at the center of it. When your children know you are taking care of your own happiness, it gives them freedom. Freedom to visit not because they're worried about you, but because they want to. Freedom to call not out of duty, but out of genuine desire. That kind of connection, it's built on mutual respect, and it lasts. I once met a woman named Lydia who hadn't seen her daughter in over a year. She missed her terribly. But instead of making her daughter feel guilty, Lydia started journaling. Not for her daughter, but for herself. She wrote about her thoughts, her memories, her hopes. And slowly, that journaling turned into poetry, then into letters. When her daughter finally visited, Lydia gave her a small collection of those writings. Her daughter cried. She said, "I had no idea you were still so full of life." That's what happens when we nurture our own flame. It shines out and brings people home. Now let's talk about something a little harder, grief. Because when your children live far away, sometimes it feels like you're grieving the closeness you used to have. The everyday moments, laughing in the kitchen, watching a show together, picking up the phone just to say hi without needing a reason. It's okay to grieve that. It's okay to feel the weight of what's been lost. But here's what's important. Don't let that grief define your story. Let it be a part of your journey, not the whole of it. There's so much life still waiting to be lived. So many people around you, neighbors, old friends, community members, who might be feeling the same thing. And when you reach out to them, when you create new moments of warmth, you're not replacing your children. You're expanding your world. You're adding joy. And joy, like love, doesn't have limits. I want to remind you of this. Your love is not invisible, even when it's quiet. It's in the care package you mail with your homemade jam. It's in the smile you give when they finally call. It's in the patience you show when plans change. And above all, it's in the life you continue to build with strength and grace. Let's keep that energy going. There's a certain kind of strength that grows in silence, the kind that comes when you're sipping your morning coffee alone, looking out the window, and quietly choosing peace. Not because everything is easy, but because you've learned that even when things are hard, you are still in control of how you move forward. And that's where we begin this next part, with the power of choosing how we respond to the distance. One of the most transformative choices you can make is to shift the focus from what you've lost to what you still have. Yes, maybe the house feels emptier now. Maybe you no longer hear the sound of feet running down the hallway or the clatter of plates at a busy family dinner. But what you do have is this moment, this space, to rediscover yourself. And believe me, there is so much of you still left to discover. When your adult children live far away, it's easy to put your life on pause, to wait for the next visit, the next phone call, the next big moment when you'll finally be together again. But life isn't meant to be lived in waiting. Life is now. It's in the book you've been meaning to read, the walk you haven't taken in a while, the neighbor you've been meaning to talk to but haven't yet. The truth is, the more fully you live, the more connected you feel, not just to your children, but to yourself. And that self-connection is key. Because when you nurture your own joy, it spills over. It colors every conversation you have with your children. It shows them that you're not just getting by, you're thriving. And nothing makes a child, no matter how grown, feel more secure than knowing their parent is happy. I remember talking to a gentleman named Thomas who used to count the days between his son's visits. It made every day feel like something to endure rather than enjoy. But then he made a shift. He started volunteering at a local youth center. He taught guitar to kids who had never held one before. Slowly, his days stopped being about waiting. And wouldn't you know it, his son noticed. He said, "Dad, I feel like I'm talking to the man I admired growing up again." Thomas didn't just regain connection, he became an inspiration. And you can do that too. You can be someone your children look up to not just because you raised them well, but because you continue to raise yourself. You show them what it means to keep growing, to keep living with purpose, even when life looks different than it used to. That leads me to something simple but powerful. Celebrate yourself. We spend so much of our lives celebrating our children, their birthdays, their achievements, their milestones. But how often do we celebrate our own? The truth is, every year you continue to grow, to love, to heal, to show up with courage. That's worth celebrating. Light a candle for your own victories. Write a card to yourself. Treat yourself with the same tenderness you've always shown others. That kind of self-respect teaches your children more about love than any lecture ever could. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for your children is to loosen your grip. Not on love, but on control. To accept that their lives will unfold in ways you can't always predict, and that's okay. You've done your part. You've given them roots. Now let them fly. And while they do, take time to stretch your own wings too. Maybe that means joining a new group. Maybe it means planning a trip. Or simply finding joy in the quiet, because there's beauty there too. Let's not forget the gift of time. The older we get, the more precious it becomes. So why not spend it doing things that light you up inside? That make you feel proud of the life you're living? That remind you, even when your children aren't by your side, your heart is still full? You are still whole. And if the ache ever sneaks in again, and it will, because love never stops aching for more time, just know that it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're alive. It means your love is deep. And that love, even stretched across miles, never fades. It only grows. So take a breath. Lift your head. You've come this far. You've done more than most. And you're still becoming. Still loving. Still building a life that matters. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you found a way to stay close to your children across the distance? Or maybe you're in the middle of figuring that out. Leave a comment and share your heart. We're all in this together. And if you found something helpful here today, give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe so we can keep having these honest, uplifting conversations. Because you are not alone. You are part of something bigger. You are living your story, and what a beautiful story it is. Here's to the kind of love that travels across miles and still feels close. Here's to you. There's something quietly heroic about the way you've shown up for love over the years. Not just in grand gestures or milestones, but in the little things. The lunchboxes packed, the late night talks, the times you waited up for your child to come home safely. That kind of love doesn't just vanish when your child moves away, it evolves. And you've been evolving with it, even when it hurts, even when the phone stays silent a little longer than you hoped. But here's the truth. The distance, no matter how far, doesn't diminish what you mean to your children. And it doesn't take away what you mean to yourself. Because at this stage of life, something beautiful happens. You start to realize that while the people you love are an important part of your story, they're not the whole story. You are still the author. You still get to write new chapters. And they can be full of joy, adventure, growth, and yes, even surprise. It might surprise you how many opportunities are still waiting for you. To reconnect with old friends, to try something you've never done before, or to finally start that project you put off while raising your family. You're not too old. It's not too late. In fact, this chapter, this exact moment, might be the one where you finally feel most like yourself. And if there's one thing you can count on, it's that the love between parent and child is not limited by geography. It may look different, but it is still just as powerful. Sometimes it comes in the form of a quiet check-in text. Other times, it's a video call where you both talk over each other and laugh until your cheeks hurt. And sometimes, it's simply in knowing they're living the life you helped them build. But while they're building that life, I want you to keep building yours too. Not as a backup. Not as something to do in the meantime. But as a full, vibrant, meaningful existence that stands tall with or without company. That's the kind of life that lights up the lives around it. That's the kind of energy that brings people closer, even from across the globe. And if you're feeling stuck, if you're not sure where to begin, I want to remind you, it's okay to start small. Maybe it's walking around your neighborhood at sunrise. Maybe it's cooking one meal a week just for the joy of it. Maybe it's calling that one person you haven't spoken to in years just to say hello. These tiny actions are how you tell the world and yourself, I'm still here. I'm still growing. And when you talk to your children again, because you will, you can bring them into that world. Share what you're learning, what you're feeling, even what you're struggling with. Let them see the real you, not just the version who asks about their job or reminds them to eat well. Let them see the version who is learning, healing, laughing, and living. That kind of honesty doesn't push people away. It pulls them in. You've spent so much of your life holding space for others. Now it's time to hold space for yourself. To tend to your own needs with as much care as you've always given. And when you do that, you give your children a gift too. The gift of knowing that you're okay. That they don't need to worry or feel guilty or carry the weight of your happiness on their shoulders. That you are whole, even from afar. So, if you've ever wondered whether love can stretch across cities, states, or oceans and still stay strong, Yes, it can. If you've ever questioned whether your presence still matters, even when you're not physically present, it does. And if you've ever doubted whether this chapter of life can be full of purpose, meaning, and connection, it absolutely can. Let today be the day you stop waiting and start living. Let it be the day you decide that distance doesn't define the love in your life. You do. Through your actions, your mindset, your openness, and your courage to keep showing up, with grace, with dignity, and with a heart full of love that has never once given up. And if this message has touched something inside you, please share your story in the comments. You never know who you might inspire. Give this video a like if it brought you comfort. Subscribe if you'd like to keep growing together with us, because this space we've created, it's not just a video, it's a community, a place for people like you who love deeply, live fully, and believe that it's never too late to feel connected. Here's to the love that knows no distance. Here's to you and all the beautiful moments still ahead.